Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Mollie Carmichael with Zonda's Inspirational Leadership Series, joined by the industry's best in all things real estate. These leaders are literally designing our future for many generations to come with new communities, home designs, technology, retail centers, infrastructure, and so much more. This series is about who they are, how they got started, who inspired them, and their journey to the top. So let's get started. Today, we're joined by one of the smartest and without a doubt most energetic leaders in our industry, Liesel Cooper. Today, Liesel is the national president of Century Communities, and she has a great story. It's truly an American dream story, and it's built on a lot of hard work. Liesel has worked hard for actually many national new home builders before joining Century Communities. It's also not hard to recognize that she's one of the few top female leaders in our industry, and I know that's changing a lot. But I think that's what I love the most about Liesel is she never let anything but hard work define her. Any challenges or labels she faced along the way, it actually just made her work harder to redefine what she thought the right ingredients for success were. And she's definitely worked hard, and it's certainly paying off for Century Communities and her career today. After joining Century Communities in 2014, she helped catapult the company into one of the fastest growing home builders. The company has since gone public. They're now ranked in the top 10, and they have been for the last 5 years in a row. That's pretty amazing when you think about it, because Century Communities has really only been around since 2002. Today, they're actually in 18 different states and 45 different markets. So it's a great story. I want you to hear the rest of her story from her. So please join me in welcoming Liesel Cooper. Liesel, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Mollie. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, let's start out with first. Tell me about your kind of typical day, the kinds of things you're responsible for, and what this job entails.
I'm the national president for Century Communities. We have 16 divisions across the country. And so what that entails is everything home building. So I am involved with when we purchase the land all the way until we deliver the home and customer experience after we deliver the home. And I have 4 regions throughout the country. And I mean, home building, people say, what's your typical day? My typical day is what's ever on fire that day that we have to figure out to keep moving forward. It's home building, right? Anything can happen in home building. But really, my typical day is really working with our regional presidents and then working with a lot of our corporate folks with our marketing, with our national operations team, our land asset committee, and accounting teams, just kind of making sure we're heading in the direction we need to and growing as a company.
So really kind of driving the ship.
Driving the ship. I mean, I think driving is the biggest thing. I mean, being a driver in a leadership role in home building is what you need to be, and that's really what it is. And really making sure the things that are not working, we figure out how to get them to work. So really, it's just driving the whole home building from start to finish.
I totally. Tell me what you love most about your job.
Every day is different. Every day is different. And I mean, listen, I've been in home building a very long time, as you mentioned, and I just I love problems. I love problem solving. I love trying to figure out what's not working. How do we get it to work? I love trying to figure out, the people piece of it is getting the right people in the right spots. That's another big responsibility of mine, is to make sure that we have the right people in the leadership roles across the country. So I love meeting new people. And I mean, listen, I love talking about Century Communities. I think it's a phenomenal company. I've been here 9 years and I've been in home building 37 years. So, but this company is just, the leadership we have with Dale and Rob is exactly was meant for me. And I can explain more of that later on, but it's just been a great home for me because it's just all about home building and all about making sure that we're building the best homes, delivering the best product to our customers, and then having the best team that we can work with to do it.
That sounds good. What's the most difficult in your position?
The most difficult is, I mean, it's the people piece has been really hard. The COVID really changed things up. It's dealing with other people that are not part of our organizations, maybe municipalities who've been super fun to deal with as of the last few years. It's just not being able to get things done in a more timely manner, I think, has been really frustrating. And then just making sure we just getting the right people. People has been probably the hardest piece of it, is to get the right people that fit in the culture and the environment. And I really feel like, because I grew up in home building, but I really feel like we really missed out when the market really went where it went in 2008. And we lost a generation of home builders. And that piece of it is really what I think is missing and what is concerning to me for the future. But what it does mean is there's tons of opportunity for people who want to get in home building and who also want to further career. And you can advance your career pretty quickly just because, and if you really have the drive and the want to do it, you really could get in this business and really, get your career moving pretty quickly because of that reason.
That's pretty exciting. Well,
Yeah.
let me ask you this. You're definitely a doer, somebody who gets
Mm-hmm.
things done. I've known you for a very long time. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to go way back, sort of at the very beginning, maybe when you were younger in your life, pre any kind of home building. I always use the age 8 just as an example. What was Liesel like as you were growing up? Tell me a little bit about, the kinds of things that you love to do. And, were you a driver even when you were younger? Like all that kind of stuff as you were growing up.
Well, when I was 8, I remember exactly one thing when I was 8, and we were in a summer play. It was actually Nantucket, and my mom let me take my bike and drive to the store on my own when I was 8, and I just remember feeling really empowered because of the fact that I could drive my bike by myself to the store. So I kind of remember that. I do not know why age 8, like that just literally popped in my head when you said that. But I just remember feeling really empowered that I could do and be independent. And I've always been pretty independent. But I think one of the turning points that I truly loved about maybe my drive, or it proved my competitiveness. This is 8th grade. So now we're moving to 8th grade. 8th grade, there was a magazine drive. And I remember just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to win this thing. Like I wanted to win this thing. And I don't even remember what you won, but I crushed it. Like I was going to win this thing no matter what. I was super competitive. I have a picture of myself in 8th grade getting this huge award that basically was the winner of the magazine drive. And I was in front of everyone like I did this. Like it was so awesome.
Yeah.
And so that was like really, I think, a turning point for me. Like if you worked really hard and then you got rewards for it, you know what I'm saying? And so I guess I was competitive back then, but I really don't know how I started to get it. It was. There's 4 of us in my family: older sister, older brother, younger sister. So I'm the middle girl, the middle child. Not that I'm trying to get into psychoanalysis, or you need to get into psychoanalysis with the middle kid. But I think I was I'm really laid back at home. But when it came to other things, I really just had that kind of drive. And but it's more
Did you
about the work drive than it
did
was
you
anything.
play sports or anything like that
I
growing
did
up?
gymnastics. I wasn't that good at it. I did get most improved one year. That's probably the best I got, award for gymnastics. So I really wasn't that good at it. But I really didn't. I ended up getting a job when my brother worked at the Chart House in San Diego, and I could get a job there as the dishwasher when I was 14, and I loved working, and I just loved it, and that was really empowering. It wasn't like I needed to get the money or anything like that and had to make a bunch of money, but I just loved it. And I was like employee of the year twice when I worked there. And it was just, I just loved working. And so I was always this way. And so anyone knows me from my younger years knows who I am. And just, I've been a worker, and I've always just wanted to excel at working and be the best I could working. And so I don't know if it was the magazine drive or the empowerment of driving my bike on my own that started my independence or what, but it really was these things kind of along the way that I think made me who I am, or made me who I became with the work ethic.
It's really neat to see because it looks like really giving you that independence really blossomed into all these other parts of your life.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Well, tell me about how you got into home building. So you obviously enter the workforce and you're working really hard and you're doing super well and you're willing to work hard. So obviously tell us the route and how you got it done.
Yeah. So the route is kind of an interesting one, kind of. I was in college, and between my freshman and sophomore year, I went back to California, worked at the chart house, and met my a significant other, and was in love. Went back to school, and school was not for me. It wasn't. I was going to University of Denver. It just wasn't for me. And so I told my mom and dad, and they're like, okay, well, if you're not going to go to school, because I was going to try and maybe go to Northridge in LA, because that's where he's from. Long story short, they were like, you didn't get to school, you haven't done anything with anything, you need to go get a job. So unfortunately, I'm going to tell you this, but it's going to really date myself. I pulled the newspaper out and to look for a job, and there was an opportunity at Coffin and Broad's mortgage company, and it was Coffin and Broad at the time, and it was a career. It was like a internship type of thing, and it was and Chad Dreyer, who was the president of the mortgage company at the time, which I'm bringing a name back up, lovely man. He was in charge of it, and I went to this career night, and he hired me, and that's how I started in home building. And so it was insuring and guaranteeing FHA, VA loans. And so that's where I started. And then I got to know the home builder, because then I started working in loans and doing some loan stuff for the home builder, Kaufman and Broad home builder. And they just were like, you need to come work for us. And kind of that's where it all started.
That's so
And yeah, it's a pretty cool story, because there's so many people along the way that I've met. But I think the biggest thing about it was where I really believe that it truly helped me with just the mindset was the market started to go down the toilet in the early 90s. And I was this low level person with the home builder. So you had these VPs and you had these low level people and the middle managers. Well, they just cut all the middle managers out, right? Well, the VPs didn't want to do the work. So I literally did like whatever I could. I just knew I had to do whatever I could to make myself valuable. And so that's kind of where I learned so many different things. And they called it KB University for a reason, because you got to wear so many different hats and learn so many different things.
it's so funny. You said you did as much as you could to, really be successful in so many words. Now, was that a conscious thought for you, or was it, just the willingness and the need to kind of fill in the holes? Or tell me about that a little bit. Was it
Well, there's one instant that happened, and now I'm going to really date myself again, but I was our president, Frank Scardina, was at the fax machine, and it was beeping and buzzing, and it was a mess, and he couldn't figure it out. I'm like, Frank, get out of the way. And I went to fix it. I went to fix the fax machine. I overheard Frank tell somebody, if Liesel wasn't here, this place would shut down. And I'm like, I get it. And what it told me is that you always have to constantly show your value. You can't just like show your value, do a really great job at one thing, and then think you can skate. You constantly have to show your value. Remember, people were losing their jobs around us all the
right?
time. It was a rough time. And so that's really was a turning point for me. It was like, I always have to show my value. And a little bit paranoia, sometimes with myself, like, oh, I'm going to lose my job, and I think I've had that for my whole career, and which can be great. And it also can be a little bit of detriment at certain points, but that's really it was a turning point for me. Like, I have to show my value constantly and have people always say, we can't do this without her.
Well, absolutely. And I think if you're working hard, one of the things that I've noticed about you is you don't wait to be asked, right? And you're just going to jump in and help, and you're going to do whatever it takes to get it done. And that's another really big thing that I think so often, working with a lot of different people, it's like, well, you didn't ask for that. And it's like, well, if you see an area where you can excel or you can make a difference or make it better, you have to go there. And so
That is Molly, you couldn't say anything. That was like the best advice I would give anyone entering any career that they want to do is exactly that. Don't wait to ask. And at KB, we used to say, ask for forgiveness, not permission. I mean, I mean, that's really how it
I
was
love
in,
that.
in those days. It's like you just, and and they gave you rope, and we used to say, you take the rope and either run with it or you're going to hang yourself with it. Like you have to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? You have to like go and make it happen. And that's how KB was in those days. And it really taught me so much and really, really molded who I was and with so many great people. I mean, I'm in a fantasy football league with all of these people still from the 1990s, and there's a reason why. And it was a tough company. We used to call it dog years at KB. When you worked there 1 year, it was dog years. But it was so they had such phenomenal people, and it was there was the reason why, because they expected you to be phenomenal.
Well, tell me
Yeah,
what it is outside of home building as you were growing up.
yeah.
Did you have any other interests or?
You know, I'm such a worker that I
I get it.
really, I didn't. I mean, the truth is that, my first marriage, I got more passion from home building than him. I mean, I'm probably saying too much, but a great guy, but like just not a good fit. It wasn't a good fit because I really wanted to work. And because I worked when I was so much younger, and the independence and like, no, like if I want to buy that dress, I want to buy that dress. If I want to buy those shoes, like, I wanted to make sure that I was in control of me.
Yeah.
And so it just didn't work. We're still great friends, never had kids or whatever. So it didn't work out. But then what happened was I'm single and here I go working even harder. So that was kind of hard, but it also grew me to be able to be got the opportunity to be division president when I was 33 years old, a woman in this industry, no college degree. Like,
That's
I don't
amazing.
think you, yeah, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, and it was a lot of hard work, but in the end, it was amazing. And I feel really, really thankful for it because of, just kind of where it spurred me to be the who I am, but also just to continue to be able to do it and get the opportunity.
As you look back at that, I mean, that's a pretty compelling result from everything that you've gone through. And when you look at that, what would you say are the top three qualities, the top three reasons you really hit? I mean, female or not, college degree or not, well, anything, but like even at 33 to become a division president, I mean, that's pretty remarkable, right? So, what do you think are the top ingredients for that? And I'm going to start with number one. Clearly, hard work. I mean, you worked your butt off, right? And
Yeah.
that was
Yep.
clearly evident, and they rewarded that. What else?
Definitely work ethic is number one, especially home building. Like everyone, we're open 7 days a week, except
Right.
for like a few days a year where we're closed. Sales offices are 7 days a week.
Sure.
And my background was sales and marketing, so it was a 7 day a week job. I think the other thing is that you said it earlier. It's like I just never said no, or I never said that's not my job. That's not I never said no. I just said yes, or I took things on.
I'm the
I
same.
mean, I got a wide variety because people want, like, okay, well, what program can you put me in to be a BP? There is no program. But what I did do was like, hey, go talk to the land guy once in a while. Go talk to the finance guy. Tell him to explain the financials to you. I
Mhm.
mean, that was the biggest thing for me, is to understand. I mean, I became a DP, and my husband now was my boyfriend, and he worked at Richmond because that's the only way I could find anyone. I was working all the time. So he lived in Northern California. He would fly into Vegas right when I got the job, and he was purchasing operations. So he taught me what a header was to a footer, right? Like, I didn't know what a header to a footer was. Like, he taught me purchasing, he taught me off. So you just have to be a sponge for everything. And then you also can't be afraid to say, I don't know. I don't understand.
I
And
agree.
even, so I mean, even land, I've been here 9 years, and I thought I knew a ton about land before I came here. And operations was really my background. But what I've learned, the first 4 or 5 years with Dale and Rob and the land piece of it, and just like now I'm the one questioning certain things, like, what about the easement, or what about this, or how could this happen? And I mean, my point is like, I got here 9 years ago. Okay. I was like 48, 49. So like, you're still constantly learning, and you
Mhm.
still
Oh, totally.
need
Every day.
to constantly learn every day. So, but the biggest thing really is to have the drive also, and just not, you just can't, you have to have that drive, that work ethic, and you just have to be willing to constantly learn and understand. Those are the biggest things.
Well, if you were to pick an alternative career, do you have one?
You know what? That's a great question. You know what I think I would love? I would love to be like an agent. Like, give me Ari Entourage all day long, right? You know,
I could
Ari and
totally see
Entourage.
you doing that.
Not see that. I'd be like totally wheeling
Yes,
and dealing. And like to me, an agent and just because everyone thinks I want to be the center of attention, there could be nothing farther from the truth.
I
I
get it.
want to be the center of attention when I want to be the center of attention. Like you can't sing happy birthday at a restaurant to me or a surprise party on your toes. But when I want to be the center of attention, that's what it's all about. But I think I would be an amazing agent, like amazing.
I do
Like I
too.
would love it. And I love the wheeling and dealing and everything else. So that's the only other career I could think about that like I missed out on, you know?
Liesel, I think you have another career. Like I think you'd be fantastic at that. What about, so let's talk a little bit about sensory communities. Tell me
Yeah.
what makes Century different. If you were to describe what the strategy is for Century communities, describe that and what are kind of the key elements that makes it a better place to work for you?
So I think for me, one of the greatest things is so Dale and Rob are our co-CEOs, and I report to both of them. And people always ask, "Well, how is that?" And it's great. I got to tell you, it's wonderful. And I've never seen a partnership like theirs. It's amazing to see and be a part of. But the best thing is I get to be Liesel. They've embraced Liesel, and I can be the authentic Liesel. And that means more to me than anything. And if people know me and you know me very well, I'm kind of out there, little ADD, I'm loud, I'm super loud. But and I remember early on one time it was like, there was an issue or something, and I was probably being a little more emotional than I should be. And I remember saying then I said, you know what, you love 80 to 90% of the Lisa when she's emotional and she's driving and she's doing this and pushing and pushing. And I said, sometimes you're gonna get the 10 to 20% Lisa that's not so fun because that emotion maybe is not the best emotion. And they're like, we totally get it. And like, never again did we talk about my emotions. And it's just like, I mean, it's, I just get to be authentic Liesel. And it's just, I get to be, I'm so much better because I'm worried about getting the job done and not worried about anything but getting the job done.
Like how they're and what they're going to think about that, right?
Exactly. They've been super supportive, and it's it's just it's nice that you can when you can be your authentic self, there's just nothing better. There's just nothing better. It just lifts everything else off and you can just do such a better job as a human. And that's really what I feel like at Century.
You know what? I love that, Liesel. I think that's probably one of the best takeaways I've had through all these interviews is let your people be their authentic selves. And we live in this world that when you're your authentic self, there's so many criticisms out there that people get to say, like, oh, she did this wrong or she did that wrong, or, I was offended by X, Y, or Z. How do you stay your authentic self, but then stay, kind of walking down that path where you're making everybody happy? I mean, do you worry
Yeah.
about that ever, or how do you deal with that?
Oh my gosh. I mean, Molly, I mean, because I respect Dale and Rob so much, I literally want to make sure that they're proud of what we're doing as a company, what I'm doing. And so I worry about it every day. And I
Me
want to make
too.
sure, I mean, I'm just a paranoid human. And it's like I said, there's good things and bad things with it. But I think there's more good than bad. I think it's got me where I am in a lot of ways. And I think sometimes I wish more people were a little more paranoid, if that makes sense.
Well, and
And so,
passionate, right? Like
yes,
I
yes.
really wish people would just be their authentic self and just be honest,
Right.
direct,
That's
and
right.
we'd all be
That's
so much better.
exactly right. And if my authentic self means it doesn't work for an organization, then that's okay too. Because sometimes there's mixed, like you don't match up with certain companies. And so when I'm interviewing people, I'm really open about kind of who we are as a company. It's funny, and just culturally, it's funny. People are like, well, what's your culture like? And what I love to say about Century is we don't have to talk about our culture. We have a great culture because we don't talk about it. We just kind of live it. And we don't try to say something we are or aren't. I mean, Dale and Rob want to be a first class organization, and they're growing a company that's a first class organization. And we want to be best in class in everything that we do. And that's what we strive for every day. And then we want people to work towards that. And then we want to take care of them as we should. And that's really as simple as I can say it in a nutshell. And so we're just worried about just kind of doing the right thing every day, all the time. And,
You Do
go
you guys
ahead.
at Century Homes, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
Do
no,
you
you're
guys
good.
at Century Homes though, do you guys like I don't want to ask your core values because that to me sounds kind of corny, but
Yeah.
like what are the things that at Century Homes like we're about this? Like these are the things that are just sort of our I'm gonna call it your high bar.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing is the thing that I really, I mean, we're always listen. The customer's like always important. They're why we're here. They're why we do what we need to do. So customers like number one, and that's we always have to take care of the customer. That's really important for us. But I think the other thing is that the team members are really important also, and they're all striving for the same goals. And Jill and Rob have done some things in the past that have really proven that they care about the team and what we want to do and how we want to get there. But I think the thing that I love the most, I mean, it's opportunity. They love opportunity. I mean, we were the fastest growing company for so many years in a row because they looked at opportunities and did it. And they really, when I first started here, we were in 2014. We're just going public. We were only in a handful of communities. I mean, excuse me, a handful of markets. And I'm like, okay, so where do we want to go to? Like, I'm part of the company now. Where are we going to? And they're like, I think we want to really go west. And like a month later, they came to me and they go, what do you know about Atlanta? And I love that story because, when you're small, also like we have our core values and things, but we also are about opportunity. And I think when you're small and you need to grow, you've got to look at opportunity. And that's one thing that I love about them is that the opportunity was there. We bought Peachtree Communities. It helped us grow as a company, integrated them in, and it's just been amazing. And so I think that's one of the things that we love is opportunity. And so like we do have things that we're geared towards and where we want to go, but I think that's something that kind of grew us as a company. I think as we get bigger, we're a little bit more, streamlined with everything that we do and, operations and land and all that other stuff. But I think that's one thing that really was something for us as we grew the organization.
Well, tell me this, big turning points in your career. Big turning points that actually led you to where you're at today before you became president at age 33. Like what were those big turning points for you?
Um, well, first of all, I think working for Bruce Carrots, who was the CEO at Kaufman Abroad the time I was there. Um, we were only in California, if you can believe it. We were only in California when I started there. For the first 7 years of my career, we were
Oh
only in
way.
California. Is that crazy?
That
KB
is
was only in
crazy.
California. I know. And one thing, and so obviously I got some FaceTime with Bruce, but like when he'd come to our communities and everything else, the one thing that really was turning point for me was when Bruce would ask a question and you would say, no, that can't happen. He'd be like, well, why? Like he never would accept no as an answer. And that to me was really something that I've just as ingrained in me that it's like you cannot take no for it. And Dale and Rob are very similar. So maybe that's why I kind of feel at home because like you just don't take no for an answer. It's like, municipalities and everything, like you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And so that was
I
something that
agree.
was to me a little bit of turning point of just understanding of what home building was all about. Like you just never took no for an answer. And there's so much gray area in home building that's why you don't. Another turning point was when I was at KB and I wanted to be a VP of sales, or not a VP of sales, but to be a sales manager. And I never sold a house. I just never wanted to sell a house, even though I probably could sell a house. I just never wanted to sell a house. It's funny. I say didn't want to work the weekends, and that's the dumbest thing I've ever said because I worked these weekends, right? And our COO at the time at KB was like, you need to sell, before you go be a sales manager. You just have to. You have to know their job or whatever. And I'm just like, I really don't want to do that. And I am quitting KB. And I gave him examples of other really successful sales managers that never sold a home, still didn't go anywhere. Well, Bruce got wind that I quit. Long story short, gave me the opportunity to go work with a DP that had sales background, and I had to move to Vegas. It was Jay Moss at KB. And that's really where it was like, first of all, the turning point was like, you know what? Remember the point where I said, you don't take no for an answer? Well, I wasn't taking no for an answer that I couldn't be a sales manager. And I pushed it. Now, luckily it worked out for me and I was able to go and get an opportunity with Jay. But the other thing was you got to have enough confidence not cocky. I don't like arrogance or cocky, but enough confidence when you're ready to take something on. And
Sure.
this has happened a couple times in my career where my bosses would kind of stay involved. And Jay did. At the time, he was staying involved with the sales team. And I walked in one day and I'm like, listen, either you're in charge of sales or I'm in charge of sales. But like, we're both not in charge of sales. So like, either you stay out or you stay in. But like, I'm not going to be here if you want to constantly let the salespeople call you. So I kind of took a line. Remember, I'm like 26-year-old, 27-year-old, like drawing a line to the sand, saying, no more. And maybe I was older, I was like 28. And he's like, okay. And he would literally go to the sales office and be like, I'm not here to talk to you. You need to talk to Liesel. I'm not going to talk to you. I just came by to see the sales. Like, so I literally got him to where I needed to be, where I was in charge and I took control. And so that I think is something that's really important. At a certain point, your bosses want you to take control. They want you to be that person and to be in charge. And I've done it a couple of times since then. And knock on wood, it's always worked for me. But I think that's the biggest thing that was some turning points. Is like when I called it out and I was able to take it. But you have to have the goods to do it. You can't say, I want this and then not do it. You have to take it, and then there's the paranoia, I want to win. You better be able to take it to a better level than this person being involved.
Right. And you have to have really not only the confidence, but the know how to do it. And they have to trust that you can do it because they
That's
won't
right.
let go unless you have what it takes to do
That's
it.
right.
So you clearly proved it after that. And
Yeah. And you also have to say when I don't know something, and you have to
yeah,
say that to them. Listen, I will come to you if I don't feel comfortable, but like I've got to go do this in order for me to grow, in order for the company to grow. Let me go do this. But you have to also have the ego to go back and go, you know what, I'm not sure about this. Like, what do you think? You know what I'm saying? I do it still today with Dale and Rob because they're brilliant. And so there are times I'm like, I need them in the boat with me on certain stuff. I mean, of course, they guide me on so much stuff, but there are times when I'm like, I don't want to make this decision. I want guidance. You know what I'm saying? And
right,
so
right.
even now, I mean, it just works out better for the organization when everyone's just kind of clear of what you want and what you understand or don't understand.
I totally agree. So you went from mortgage to sales, and so
Yeah.
you were a sales manager. And then tell me about your career from there, how you kind
So
of
I became VP of sales and marketing, which I thought was like the ultimate dream. I never thought I'd have anything different. Ended up moving. It was KB was changing at the time. They had bought Rayco. They were changing to built to order, like totally changing. Super different than ask for forgiveness, not permission. It was more like, here's the playbook. This is where we're going. And I was just like, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to make a move. Ended up going to Richmond to do their national VP of sales and marketing. Moved to Denver. I was single at the time, and within a year and a half, I mean, and David Mandrich, I mean, honestly, Carol Meisel was another big influencer. She's the CEO of Larry Meisel. And she was like, you need to come here. Like, she was really important to my career in a lot of ways. Like, you have to have those people, honestly, Molly, that see something
sure.
in you that you don't see. And literally, I think Bruce Carrots was one of those. I think Carol Meisel was huge, huge, huge for my career, and really loved my energy and everything that I did. And then David Mandrich, like, I was there a year and a half, and he's like, we had an opening in Vegas. I had lived in Vegas for 2 years, and he's like, what do you think about doing this? 33 years old. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like nervous, but I was like, yeah, sure, let's do this.
I love
Best airline trip ever was flying out with him to introduce me. And he's like, hey, Lisa, do you know anything about accounting? And I'm like, huh. I'm like, you know what? The credits have to be higher than the debits. And he's like, you're in. You got this. So
it.
it's a funny story, but it's kind of a true story. And but and that was a lot of hard work, but it was great because my husband, who was he was just my boyfriend at the time, lived in Northern Cal. I worked Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9, 10 p.m. He'd fly in Saturday, we'd drive sites. Like, I gave it everything. And it was great. And so that's kind of how that's how I became a DP, and feel just really fortunate I got the opportunity. My first quarter was like, my first couple months were lousy with the company, with Richmond, and we were not making money in Vegas. And then finally March hit and we made money, and I was on cloud nine. And I mean, I was counting porta potties. I did everything possible. And I had someone who really taught me finance, like everything. I signed every check. I did everything to know how to run a P&L for a division and a company. and I didn't let other people do it for me. I did it all on my own. And the other great thing that happened was my land guy quit. And so I literally told the receptionist, I'm like, anyone who calls who's selling land, put them through to me, like find me. And I would just start talking to land sellers. And that's, I mean, you just happen to say kind of yes to everything. You just have to say, you don't take no for an answer, and you say yes to everything on trying to figure out how to do things, especially things that are not your background.
I love that. I love that. And even from there, so accelerate your career even further. So you're division president in Las Vegas, and then where do you go?
So after Las Vegas, so then I moved around a lot with Richmond. I ended up moving to corporate for a little while, being a regional. I became so after about 4 years or so, I became a regional president, and I moved to Southern Cal, moved to Newport Beach for a period of time, and did the West Coast for them. And then I moved and became their national president in Denver. And then it was like 2007, and I got to tell you, this is something that I think everyone can understand. It was tough times, which I have no problem with and loved it. But I went. I remember Friday afternoon. I told David Manager, I'm going to go pick up my daughter from school because like there was just it was a lot going on, and I was traveling a ton. Like every week I was traveling, and I went to go pick her up at school, and I get there, and they're like, Mrs. Cooper, like, could we see your ID? Because I had never picked my daughter up from school. And I'm like, what? Like, okay, she's blonde hair, blue eye, looks like me, just a little bit miniature. She was like
Right.
5 at the time, four at the time. She was four at the time. And that really kind of struck a chord with me. And
Mm.
where I was like, I think something needs to change here. And so had a really hard time, like took 6 months to really think about it. And then just decided I needed to take a step back. Ended up talking to Steve Hilton, had talked to him a little bit, and my husband loves the heat, but I never wanted to move back to Vegas. Didn't want to raise my daughter there, and ended up moving to Arizona. Worked for Meritage for a little bit. Then what kind of thought I wanted to go out on my own, and someone banker came to me and said you should really try and go on your own. And so I did. Unfortunately,
Know that.
yeah. So unfortunately, this is early 2008, and unfortunately, timing, as they say, is everything. And we're trying to, I mean, I went to Wall Street, pitched the company, and
That would have
did
been
what
such a great time.
it was. I know. Well, if it was after 2008, 2009 would have been better. So that's where I
Yeah,
faltered. And
right.
so
A year off.
I mean, listen, it's just, yeah, it was bad timing. Cheers to Lehman fell apart, everything, and no one was doing anything at that time. So then I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? So I did what I'm going to do something. My husband's a general contractor. I did 65 fix and flips in 9 months in Arizona. I was on the courthouse steps, flip
Wow.
flip flops, shorts. Never thought I would do this. Got to read in my daughter's kindergarten class. Like it was a period of time. Like I thought I'd never go back to public home building. And it was fun until, all the big conglomerates came in, were bidding things up, and we wanted to fix and flip. We didn't want to hold. And I'm probably telling you way too much, Molly. But the bottom line is, it was a really great time. I was an entrepreneur. I bought a couple of defunct subdivisions in Phoenix, like 30 lots that were defunct and had houses that started to build on it, bought them from banks. So just did a lot of different things like that in Phoenix. And then I went to a Builder 100 in Chicago I'll remember, it's exactly June of 2010. I ran into Jeff Metzger, KB CEO, and he's like, Liesel, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to be a private builder in Phoenix. And he's like, how's it going for you? I go, and he had an opportunity in Arizona, and I went back to KB for a couple of years. Loved it. It was great. They moved me to. I ended up taking over Vegas, and then they moved me to Colorado. So I was the regional president for New Mexico, Vegas, Arizona, and then Colorado. The hard part was coming back to Colorado, and then Richmond being like, wait a minute, you're back in Colorado. Like, why aren't you working for us? So I went back to Richmond. Here I am, like, these builders, like,
Wow.
remember, Richmond and KB, 21 years total. The two of them, my first
That's
two
fantastic.
companies, which is very rare. Ended up going back there, had a great couple of years there, working nationally again. And then it was just kind of time to move on. Sometimes like going back, it's just different. and love the company, love everyone at both KB and Richmond. And then I was like, okay, what's really my next step? What do I really want to do? And frankly, Molly, best job in the whole industry to me is being a DP. Not a
I
regional,
agree.
not a
I totally
national.
agree.
I mean, regional and national are Monday morning quarterbacks, right? But when
Right.
you're a DP, you can affect everything going on with your business. And so I was like, I heard there was an opening at Santa Pacific. So I'm like, I'm calling Santa Pacific. Like, I'm going to see if they have an opportunity there. They had just filled the role. All this is all before the mergers and everything else. And then someone's like, well, what about Century Communities? And I'm like, I knew I'd heard about the brothers being this, at this company and Century Communities because they were in Denver. And I'm like, maybe. And so I went and met with them and I really hit it off with them. I mean, I got to tell you, I met with on a Monday, and had I not had another interview on a Thursday, I had an offer by Friday, and I've never been happier. Like, never been happier. It's been a
That's
phenomenal
fantastic.
run. Really phenomenal. Really
We know when
phenomenal.
you really think about our business, there's no bigger way to make a difference than the actual building of the home, right? And
Yeah.
so to really create that and know that that's going to be there for hundreds of years after you. I mean, what bigger place to make a difference? And then as a division president, just having that team around you and then watching, inspiring, and frankly helping them to grow into their careers, another just huge place that you can make a difference. I
Yeah.
mean,
What and to add to that, what's even better about that is like, so when I go, because I was a DP in Vegas, DP in Phoenix, Southern Cal, I was the regional at the time, but I was really involved. But what's even better is that driving around this country and being a part of homes that I built and have memories. Like, I
yes.
could tell you about the memory in 1994 in Vegas that we held for 89,900 in Green Valley Ranch. Like, the memories of the people I work with there and how the landscaper almost got in a fight with, like, fist of fight with the freaking guy building the walls because they were on top of each other. But there's memories, and you look at these houses, and people get annoyed sometimes, like we build those houses, I built these houses, and but they're just memories, and it floods back of all the people you've worked with, which is the best part about this industry. It's just the best.
It
And
is
so
the
that
best.
to me is even what's better about it is because you can drive around and remember these different communities that you have all these great memories with.
Oh, totally. The other thing that I do, and this is just part of my DNA, is when you drive some of them, I also will sometimes cringe, like, oh, I should have got that.
Yeah, I know.
Or
I know. I'm like, did we
there's a
put
little
a
bit of
belly
that too.
band on that one, or why did we put a belly band? And like, those
Right.
are the colors, are those recolored? It's like it's so true.
How
I
did
drove
I
through
not catch
Anaheim,
that?
literally
Yeah.
drove by Anaheim Hills last Thursday. Drove through Anaheim Hills, and like, these are all KB homes, and I'm like, they look pretty darn good, and they're from the early '90s, and I'm like, wow, and they're probably still for $1 million or whatever. So it's even
Yeah.
funnier. It's awesome.
Yeah, that is really cool. Well, as we're wrapping up, tell me a little bit about kind of we talked a lot about sort of the steps you've had in your life. And of course, even from Century, sounds like every person you work for really saw so much potential in you and continues to grow you. And what a great opportunity. Tell me about the leaders in your life and if you were to pick like the top two or three or whatever, and what their qualities are and what's important to you, what makes the leaders you're working for today different and unique for you.
Yeah, I think I mean, listen, I think all of them, all the leaders that I've worked with have been really very, like, they just saw so much in me and they gave me the opportunities. One, because I always took them, or I took them without asking and did them. And that's kind of where it shook out. But I would say really, it's just letting me be me. I think I talked about it. It's really about the fact that I'm not the most polished human. I mean, I know people, I don't know if you've heard this, but people have said that I, sometimes swear a little bit, which, I try to be good about not swearing and everything else. But
Do
I
you have a
think it's
favorite
just,
swear word?
oh my, of course, it's like starts with an F, ends with, anyways. So, but I do. But I mean, as long as I'm not swearing at people, which I don't, my HR person has said to me, now, Liesel, swearing is not against anything. And I don't, I mean, I love it when HR's on my side, it's like, But it's just really about like, I think the respect is the biggest thing, and respecting who I am. And I sometimes need to learn that a lot too, just with people who work for me, like respecting who they are and what they bring to the table. Because everyone's been very respectful of who I am and kind of let me be who I am. And that to me is just super important. But you have to earn that. You can't just expect it.
I
You
love
have
that.
to really, really earn to be your authentic self, I think. And that to me, I think is the most important thing. And I think it goes missed a little bit with certain folks about just like people just, thinking they deserve certain things. Like to me, I never thought I deserved anything. I mean, not graduating college is probably one of the biggest things that chased me. Because when I started this position at the mortgage company at KB, the woman who had the same job as me was a graduate of UCLA, and I was not a graduate. I had 2 years kind of school. They didn't pull the transcripts, thank goodness. And so it was like it was just like I knew I had to be that much harder of a worker because she had that. Now everyone says, "Oh, college this, college that, whatever." I think it's more and more prominent. I of course was telling my daughter she really needs to go because I think one, the experience is the number one thing, and two, you get a lot of good connections that way. But honestly, I think you have to, if you really want it, you can't just expect it. And I never, ever, ever expected it. And there's times when like I'm a little naive where I should have maybe expected certain things. And there's things that maybe I should have, people be like, well, I mean, and the woman card and everything else. Listen, I felt in some ways being a woman was disarming to men in some ways, and being in a room full of men because men have egos, and men maybe want to have egos with each other, whatever. But with me, I don't think they may have felt it until they felt it. You know what I'm talking about,
Yep.
Molly? Until I
Yep.
showed them, until
Yeah.
I proved to
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
maybe why I should be a threat. Not that anyone should be a threat, but you get what I'm saying.
Right. Totally. Absolutely. Well, do you have, or is it kind of all the people that you were for, or do you have any sort of specific leaders that sort of pop out as like,
Well, I mean, listen, I told like Bruce Carrott's number one was really about like the drive and never taking no. Carol Meisel was about like, you just because you're a woman doesn't mean you should deserve a seat at the table, and pushed me to be more confident in that way. David Vandrich, who literally knew me a year and a half and was like, you could go be a division president. So that was huge that he gave me that opportunity, and I shined there. And frankly, Dale and Rob have been with them. It's just I even feel like I said in the land department, I think learned so much just being exposed to so much more. And they really, I listen, I say it, I've never been happier in a position in my career. And so I think that to me is just says a lot. You know what I mean? I mean, I go to work with a skip in my step every day. Like, there's nothing that can come at me that I can't figure out, or we can't all get figured out. Like it's such a team environment. And there's just like the egos aren't there. Like there's no people with agendas. There's no toxic, like there's just, it's a good camaraderie, and everyone respects each other. And it's just because of how they want their company run.
that's awesome.
So
It's really
really awesome.
interesting. There's two things. You're doing a good job if you're loving your job. It
Yep.
goes two ways, right? But the other part of it too is that they respect you and you respect them when that sort of, it's just, it's kind of harmony. I'm gonna hate to be corny about it, but it really is.
Yeah.
Well,
Totally agree.
this has been great. When I just have one more question for you, and we might weave this into this interview, but what qualities are you looking for in your leaders when you
I
hire?
think, when I interview and hire, I think I love people who are competitive. I really
Right?
love people who are competitive
Totally.
because it means they want to
They
win all
have
the
to be.
time. You have to be competitive. And
Yeah.
you just, when you want to win all the time, like that to me is just a really great
Yeah.
quality. You have to be a great communicator. Like in this business, and it's not about like covering yourself with emails, covering your ass with emails. I don't know if I can say that, but covering your ass with
Yeah.
emails. It's all about just communication
Yeah.
and really communicating with your team and everyone understanding. It's funny when people also talk about like culture and stuff. I always tell people like each individual division kind of has different cultures because they're what the leader is local. And even
Sure.
though we can influence at the corporate office, it's really what the local leader is. And so to me, it's definitely competitiveness, it's definitely communication, and it's definitely a drive. You have to be a driver in this business. You can't just go in and be like, okay, so the city doesn't care about us, they're not going to give us permits. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow. Like, we have to drive and say, why not? What can we do? When do we submit? Who can we go to? Like, you have to drive in this business. You've got to be a driver.
Do you find that you hire leaders more like you, or does that influence? I mean, you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. My bestest friends in the company are the finance people who, like, literally, are just like flatliners. They're like, literally, but they're I mean, it's crazy. The finance folks I really end up being really close with, and they're opposite of me. And
Right.
so, but when I look for leaders, I don't know if I say they have to be like me, but they just have to have some of the, when they're leaders, like for division president or sales and marketing, like each kind of role is a little bit different than the other, right? Land guy is going to be a little bit different than maybe a land development guy or whatever. So it kind of depends on the role. But I do think that the three things that I talked about, competitive, and driver and communication, are things that I think in any of those roles. But I don't know if I try to do exactly, like me.
Interesting. Um, and I think you need that balance, right? It's like a good
Yeah.
relationship. You, at least for me anyways, I don't want to marry someone like me. I really almost need the opposite. I don't know what that means, but
I tell everybody, I don't know, I would not marry me. Personally, I would not marry me. So I
we
totally get
could
it.
kill
I'm
each
like,
other.
yeah, I'm like, I would never marry me. Like, no way. So I totally get that and agree. I think opposites, and I think that's what you need. You need a bunch of different people doing a bunch of different things, because that's how it makes it a one full round circle.
I love it. Well, I learned a ton from you today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to give you some quick ones. I love, if you really want it, you can't expect it. You really have to work hard for it. So be a driver, and never set expectations too low. I mean, your goal was this position and then that position, and there was never a bar, and you just kept reaching for what was right. Always say yes and be passionate about it. Don't really sort of take it, someone will get that,
Begrudgingly.
whatever.
Yeah.
Just have passion in everything you do. Reach out, ask questions. I love this one. Don't be afraid to say you don't know. That's the only way you're going to learn. And my favorite thing you said in this entire interview, my absolute favorite is, be your authentic self. Because if you're not going to love that job the way that you love your job. And the fact that you are who you are, and the people that you've worked with have embraced that and they love it. And look, you're like conquering the world in home building.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I
impressive,
don't know about
Liesel. And
conquering. I'm trying to. I'm trying. Oh, thank you, Molly. I love this business. And it's funny because, you know, I'm kind of an emotional person, and people are like, it's passion, Lisa, it's passion. So now that's my thing. It's passion, it's not emotions. But it's the best industry ever.
it
And
is.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
It is. And we're both fortunate to be here. So,
Yep, we
well,
sure are.
thank you again. And that's it. Thank you again for joining us. This is Mollie Carmichael, and I hope you enjoyed this series. Please hit like if you liked today's broadcast, and subscribe if you'd like to hear more from the best and the brightest in our industry. Take care, everyone, and I hope you join us again next time.